That's amazing. So I'm curious, how has that evolved? Have you been able to see any kind of evolution or find any evolution, how it's progressed over a 45,000 year, 60,000 year period?
Oh, I mean, in terms of biological evolution, I don't think Homo sapiens sapiens have changed all
No,
that
no, no.
much in
I mean the
60,000.
the cultural belief. It
Oh,
is
the cultural. Well, I tend not to use evolution when I'm talking about cultural beliefs. That's I tend to restrict evolution to biology. Cultures don't evolve, in my opinion. They change, they adapt. They don't necessarily evolve.
okay, but the
Just
changes
the
over
change.
that 45 to 60,000 years.
Yeah, sure, there are changes, but what's also cool is that there's things that are exactly the same. So like the hand paintings that you see and some of these cave paintings, some of these things are like, 40, 50,000 years old, but they're still active traditions. People still go in there and adding to them, right? So I don't know any in the world, I don't know any sort of active traditions that have been going on for that long.
Wow, that's amazing. So they still to this day do hand paintings, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, this is usually done as part of the walkabout when you're exploring or retracing or engaging in the stories of your totemic ancestry.
Okay. Is there anything else they do besides those hand paintings? Still
Oh
to this
yeah, yeah, yeah. All these sort of abstract designs and all of this sort of cave art and all the sort of art, rock art and stuff they do, and all of it, including all of their music and their dances, all of it are expressions of these creation stories that are all about the landscape.
Oh my God. That's it. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah, and so it's a very, very tight relationship in those societies between spirituality and the landscape itself. So you can see why, like, there tend to be anti-development, right? And, you don't dig up heaven, you don't plow down the pearly gates.
yeah, yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, I'm kind of there with them in many ways.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a real tense issue in Australia and has been for quite some time. So again, a lot of cultural differences and arguments, I would say, between cultures also very often boil down to myth.
okay. So when you were talking at the beginning about these Australian beliefs, you talked about dream space. And my first thought came to mind was Hinduism and Buddhism, how you're trying to reach, I can't even say, I can't even think of the word right now. It starts with a B in Hinduism, but in Hinduism and Buddhism, it's a nirvana. Is there a similarity trying to achieve this?
Not really. No, very, very distinct traditions. I mean, the idea of nirvana, that, of course, is a chief tenet of Buddhism. This is the idea that one can spiritually purify oneself and gradually sort of, ascend into the spirit realm. So that there is sort of eventual heaven, but most people are going to take a long time to get there, right? This is Buddhism. Maybe never get there. Hinduism and a lot of the Vedic traditions have some similar ideas of the karmic progression that you're going to get recycled. And if you're a bad person, you'll come back as a lesser life form, right? Maybe a dog or maybe a cockroach or something like that. And that you sort of are that humans are usually considered the last step before, achieving enlightenment or going on. So Hinduism is interesting and Buddhism is interesting. They do sort of allow for other animals to have uh, uh, souls and spirits, although it's always put on this sort of hierarchy that they are lesser than us. With the Native Americans, again, not quite so fast, right? A lot of their stories relate that the animals are sort of the elder brothers, that they created us, that they are sort of they're the chief deities, right? And even if we're smart and clever, they also kind of demand respect, and that their souls might be sort of on an equal basis. So there's profound differences. And then with the Australian, the idea that the dream time, that there is another reality, sort of like heaven or something that is eternal and that is going on and that you can try to tap into. It's almost like the idea of heaven, except that it's a different time. It's at that moment of creation of the landscape. So these ideas of time are very different in all of these. And I think particularly the Australian example, right? That there was one moment in time that became eternal, if you will, and we keep trying to get back to it.
Okay, interesting.
And there's an interesting point about that too, is that very often people do this with myths. We bring myths in at important times up in our culture, so we return to that sort of original moment. So if you look at like wedding rituals in the United States, this idea of like the father giving away the bride, Yeah, have you ever seen classical paintings of when God created Eve and he shows up with Eve and gives her to Adam? So here's the Father God giving the bride to the groom. So this is replicated in our wedding rituals. These mythic moments, if you will.
Wow. Very, yeah, that is very interesting. Very interesting.
This
Uh,
to be true cross culturally. In important rituals, cultures very often reference their myths, their creation stories.
Reference, yeah, because that builds a foundation of belief within people.
Now, even language, right? Our language is built from our myths. I mean, whether I believe it or not, this is still my Adam's apple, right? I mean, this is whether I believe in the story or not, this is your Adam's apple, right? So these things are built into the societies. The whole thing with gender, like people are like, well, wait a minute, there's only two genders. Why do you think there's only two genders? Adam and Eve, right? I mean, there's plenty of other societies that have more than two genders. Many, I don't know of any Native American societies that only had two. Right? Most allowed for more than two genders. Most allowed for people to change their genders, and sometimes people would change their genders over the course of their life, sometimes several times. Some groups had up to five genders. Right? So biology, biology, but gender is gender. These are two. Gender is a cultural elaboration of biology, and some of those cultural elaborations can get pretty elaborate. So, why do Abrahamic impacted Americans have a hard time understanding this pretty simple lesson from anthropology? Again, I think just like, Adam and Eve. If you remember the gay marriage debate back when it was a debate just a few years ago, there was a big talking point that, we can't have gay marriage because God didn't created Adam and Eve. He didn't create Adam and Steve, right? So for a while there was like, who's the Steve guy showing up, right? So again, what's happening? Well, people are referencing this creation story to make a contemporary political point about how you should live your life. So myths are omnipresent. We tend to be unconscious of them. I mean, we just think that there's only two genders because Adam and Eve, and our society has only two genders. Sure, but why does our society only have two genders? Well, because Adam and Eve, right? So this becomes a naturalizing thing. This is what myth does. It makes our cultural seem completely natural, and therefore other cultures seem wacky.
Wow. Okay. That is wow, definitely food for thought, to say the least.
Anthropology is a fun thing to study. It shows you what's out there, what different cultures do, and then whenever you learn about other cultures, you very very quickly learn a thing or two about your own culture. When you learn about other people, you quickly learn a thing or two about yourself.
Yeah. All right. And so kind of keep it all within the hour talk. Is there any last words or anything you'd like to share with future generations?
Well, future generations, I hope there will be some. We're right now going through global climate devastation. This is the sixth great extinction of life on Earth. This is the biggest extinction of life on Earth in 65 million years, I believe. Last one was because of an asteroid, but this one is not because of an asteroid. This is because of us and our culture. It's not because of indigenous peoples. They're not the cause of this. It is sort of capitalism, industrialism, and modernity, if you will. So I hope there will be future generations. We're not good. Somebody said, "Oh wow, this is the hottest summer ever." I'm like, "Oh, no, this is the coolest summer you're ever going to see," in all likelihood. So we're not on a sustainable path, and it's going to require great change. I don't think the answer. Some people, there's a huge escapist fantasy, like we're going to get in a little tin can and fly out to another world and wreck that one. I don't think so. I really don't think it's going to happen. First off, I don't think it's plausible or feasible. And secondly, even if it did happen, I don't want to be on board. I don't want to spend my life and my future children's life in a little tin can or something. No, it's ridiculous. I mean, how many people could fit on there? We're on the base spaceship you could possibly imagine, the best spaceship hurtling through the cosmos. All we have to do is take care of it.
All right. Thank you again, Talk.
My pleasure. And one way we could take care of it is to learn from other people. Take a moment to learn about other mythologies, including ones where the earth is sacred.